Let me just start by saying that I'll just take you through a quick journey of how I got involved, and I'm sure Lut and Gerard know that SASOG was extremely concerned about the cost of indemnity for obstetricians, and this took me through this journey that I put a paper together for them, or a document. It was completely independent, and I got many people involved to give me input. And this was regarding the increase or the spiraling indemnity costs for obstetricians. Not only that, but also on the two arms that were part of SASOG, and to revolve and to try and resolve that, which we did very effectively. But let me just disclose my conflicts. I've got none, but I'm extremely conflicted and concerned about the state and the future of our obstetricians. As you know, we will probably be paying, obstetricians will be paying close to a million rand next year. And if you think about it, where we were when I stopped obstetric practice, I was afraid already I didn't want to pay that amount, but this is what's going to happen. And I made contact with 7 of the last college students, and you guys might not know that, Gerard, is that the last 7 don't want to do obstetrics. They're moving out. They're going to do one of the subspecialties, which is sad. So the whole discipline is under siege. This report came out in early 16, and the problem that was highlighted was the loss of the potential loss of the speciality, loss due to continuation of wanting to practice, brain drain, and the lack of training. And as we know, apart from the historical universities, the quality has also taken a big knock. And the fear that we are going to have unsafe obstetrics, because we're driving another 150,000 deliveries into the state, which is underfunded, overstretched. And we realized when we looked at everything that it was not only an obstetric problem, but it was a multi-stake problem. It was the indemnifiers, it was the hospitals, it was the training, the funders, the doctors themselves, the regulators, the legal fraternity, as what Alan has just touched upon, and obviously what concerns you is the education and the support that we're getting from the state. But we had to start somewhere to get our house in order, and oopsie, that's the wrong button. And I can only give tribute following this report to Johannes van Waart and his SASOG team, what they have done with the Better Ops program, which is actively being rolled out as we stand here today, or sit here today. It is virtually into every labor ward in the private sector. I'm not quite sure how far we are with the state, but it certainly seems to be infiltrating there as well. And the Better Ops program, I'm not going to linger on this too much. It is the objective is to promote safer deliveries, healthier babies, better outcomes, consequently decrease the incidence of litigation, and needless to say, to bring down indemnity. The rationale being safer births will ultimately translate into a more manageable. And we've been able to do that because we've had a traditional indemnifier in this country for many, many years, and we have been able to turn this into that there is a acceptable competitor, and probably as we see there are signs now that there are more will come and join the fray. Now, as Johannes sort of refers to the obstetrician, the pediatrician, the hospital, and the patients as the four pillars of the Better Ops program, and I think we all know that, we must not forget the indemnifier themselves, the funders, and I'll certainly touch on the indemnifiers quite a bit. The funders are party to this, and I think the educationists as well. The Better program is available to all SASOG members, and if I just can give you statistics, when before Johannes became chair of SASOG, there were just over 400 SASOG members. Out of the odd 800 plus that we are now in South Africa, 755 are now SASOG members. And this is not only due to the Better Ops program and what we're trying to do in other fields. I think that's commendable. So the obstetrician, we need to, first of all, the four legs. I'll quickly just go through them very rapidly. You know, you have to adhere to the SASOG protocols introduced in all labor wards. These protocols are active documents. They're updated, and to ensure evidence-based medicine. From a continuous medical education point of view, it's on a CPD system to attend at least 50% of the maternal mortality and perinatal mortality meetings as arranged by a hospital. And actually, it's actually quite nice to see how the private hospitals are driving them from within their management. It is managed. It is monitored by the hospital themselves and by SASOG. Complete delivery reports, much better reporting has to go into that. Those are legal documents, and then to comply with SASOG and the expert opinion mediation committee peer review system, and I'll go through that with you in a minute. Who advise on delivery, to give advice on delivery and surgical rights, and including retaining where appropriate. So and we've had two cases that were referred to us quite recently. They were peer reviewed, and they were both struck off the roll and are still off the roll. One was over a period of time. I don't have to go into the detail. So the system does work. Just the obstetrician further is to form about the Better Ops program and the expert opinion mediation committee and its function. It has to be made known to the patient. That goes to the obstetrician, that goes to the hospital. Needless to say, as an any clinician, we are so exposed by not informing patients of what we should be telling them. No matter what we do, it's never good enough. But we have to try the best we can. Lutz, I think, the 13 and 20-week screening, I think the best is being done where we are at the moment, and we're all trying to play a role there. But obviously, a lot more has to be shared with the patient. The pediatrician basically as well has to take part in the maternal mortality and perinatal mortality meetings for their CME. I think one of the mainstays is that they also do proper record keeping, and that the obstetrician and the pediatrician, as Alan just said, now we were all in the old indemnifiers. You as a doctor, when something happens, keep quiet, which is the worst thing that you can do. Keep talking. We should be doing the absolute opposite. That keeps communication over. And most people, actually, even before I'm quite sure, those people that do communicate with the patient probably are mediators themselves before they even get to the process of mediation. The hospital plays a major role. I'm not going to go in all the detail. they have to make the information available. They've got to make sure that those meetings happen. I think it is their right to withdraw delivery rights and surgical rights on bad apples. And we that now see the cases coming through our system where we do keep them on database, believe me, there are bad apples. We've got clinicians with 13, 14 legal cases against them. Consensus report for the peer review and the EOMC committees, that is all the players have got to participate in that. The financial involvement, and the hospitals certainly do. They do participate or have started participating since we have launched the Better Ops program, putting money in where it's needed for the training and making literature available and so forth. Very important, the incentivizing of clinicians via supporting indemnity institution hospitals is totally unacceptable. That was attempted on a number of occasions where doctors said, well, come and practice here, we'll pay your indemnity fee. That is incentivizing both by the institution, indemnifying institutions and hospitals. I must emphasize that. As Alan has just shown you, the pre-mediation clause, which has been reviewed a number of times. I think we reviewed it probably last week. And I hope this one will stick. It was a double page initially, and I think the double page is still being used by the hospitals, and which does serve the purpose that it needs to. But having dealt with, and I can freely say that, that we are now part of the Federation of the South African Surgeons, we fall under the same group, they accepting that that proposal, and I can probably share that with you. They have accepted that now. And then the patient, obviously the patient has to be made aware of what it's all about. They have to sign the necessary documentation, and that the first port of call is what we say mediation, which is obviously then pre-mediation, but I'll go into that a little further in a minute. The SASOG Expert Opinion Committee, which is that is established, is to help evaluate the legality and the viability of the disputes that do arise. They have, just to give you an idea, and I'm sure everybody is fearful of having to receive that letter, that fearful letter, and we are busy with one of the indemnifying groups, and we want to spread it to the rest, that we will try and interfere even earlier, and I will discuss that with you. And I think there is a place for ring fencing. You know, as obstetricians, and Lut, you will probably comment on that. Does that speciality, do they need to be separate, or like in your subspeciality, do we? Because obstetric, a lot is happening in your field against patient, of a patient against a doctor. Should that be ring fenced by an indemnifier? We can talk about that in a minute. The critical things, I think Alan has touched on that, on the lead obstetricians, the protocols and guidelines, the mediation and the maternal mortality and perinatal mortality meetings, the obstetric handbook, which is available now, and the expert opinion and mediation committee, and the acceptance of the pre-mediation clause. Critical components further, the lead obstetrician playing a huge role. And I think the main thing of a lead obstetrician, as we have it now, until such time that a hospital can employ an obstetrician as a full-timer, is to spread risk. In other words, if an obstetrician has got a problem I'm talking probably not only private, probably in both sectors, is that he spreads his risk, that if he's got a problem, that he gets hold of that second obstetrician or the lead obstetrician, say, listen, what do you think? You know, that already will calm the nerves. It's every hospital's decision. How do they appoint them? I think it should be on a rotational basis so that there is no bias to anybody. As I said, it is a risk to spread risk among clinicians. Updated protocols. It's any protocol in a hospital. They are all there. They're laminated. They're in a book. They are active documents, and they can change as we get to know more about the condition. And if new protocols have to be in there, they will be entered. And then we've got the ESMO program by Peter MacDonald. That has been accepted by all the hospital groups, all 4 of them that are there, and he's got a rollout program. He takes in 8 at a time, and from there it branches out on basic obstetric practices. And then obviously to signed information documentation on admission, which will have that clause in. And those are, I'm not going to dwell on that, that's the Better Ops program. Those are the protocols that are in place already. I've spoken about the maternal mortality and perinatal mortality meetings. And very important that the obstetric handbooks have been, which is put together by Professor Priya Soma-Pillay, has now been bought in bulk by the hospital groups and actually delivered to each and every obstetrician, and the book is in every labor ward. And obviously, as I said, further, the ESMO program is an ongoing mechanism. I quickly want to talk on the EOMC. Those, as you can see the EOMC, the Expert Opinion Mediation Committee, it is not only now the privilege of SASOG, it is also now that of the Federation of Surgeons are going to do a very similar, virtually to the T. These are the different logos that we're going to be registering. The EOMC is an independent, constituted legal entity. Not registered yet, but it will be. An expert opinion arm is developed under the auspices of SASOG, and we now can say it's under the auspices of FOSAS. It's indemnified as a legal entity to uphold and defend its function. Alan made an issue of that. If we, if the Expert Opinion Mediation Committee gives an opinion, we have to abide by that opinion. We are looking at getting the group that are now the Expert Opinion Mediation Committee indemnified against any form of litigation, because they will be challenged. In 5 years' time, they will be challenged on one of these issues, and we are awaiting the quote at the moment. The function with clear guidelines and standard operation procedures is to be posted on the SASOG website. We're just waiting for one of our colleagues to do the final editing, and it will be on the website so that you can see this is a SASOG thing, the EOMC is there. All the members, which I'll quickly just run through, will be on that, so the patient can actually choose, as Alan said, they choose their expert that they want to use. What is the Expert Opinion Mediation Committee? The main objective is to serve the discipline from a medico-legal point of view, and needless to say, develop following a report that looked into the spiraling cost of indemnity in unrealistic manner. This is the second arm. First we had the obstetric, the Better Obs arm, to bring down the cost of indemnity. This EOMC is probably even more important than the Better Ops program, is to get the cost down. It is a service to our members, in other words, to basically the SASOG members, which there now are 755 of, as well as other third-party medico-legal disputes with the best evidence out there. It fantails into the Better Ops program and mediation as a whole to resolve medico-legal conflicts and hopefully other than litigation. Service to other parties if need exists, example, hospital, funders, indemnifiers, etc. Again, we've had now the second hospital group approach us and say, can you help us with this? Can you give us some? The one was where they withdrew surgical rights on an individual. And the other one was something that we could just do the necessary lead. We put them onto the expert that we thought they could make use of, and that we make available to the hospital, because the hospitals do support the whole initiative of the Better Ops program, the EOMC, etc. That's the structure. The executive at the moment is Dr. Ismail Borat, reports to the president of SASOG, and we've got two sub-chairs. The obstetric is Priya Somapillai, and Gynae is myself. And then we've got the tier 1, 2, 3, and 4, the tiers of 5 experts in each of the needed skills to defend a EOMC medical legal opinion. Tier 2 is a group of individuals that the 5 experts will say, okay, I want an expert, I would like or I'll introduce the expert to the conflicting party and say, we suggest that these are the individuals, but the choice at the end of the day, because there is a bio of each individual on the expert on the EOMC will be on the website, so they can actually make that choice. Tier 2 is then the individuals that the tier 1 then says, listen, we need further experts, expert help. So they have got another base to choose from. And then tier 3 are individuals that are out there that we want evidence-based opinions by the 2 individuals. We choose 3, but 2 individuals need to give us the scientific background, and 1 individual which comes from tier 3 who practices in a very similar situation of the tier 1 and tier 1 individuals. Then those 3 opinions are then compiled into a single report, and hopefully we'll have a single report that is sort of speaks of similar value and of similar outcome, but it is the responsibility of the tier 1 individual to eventually make the final decision, say, this is what we're going to defend, and stick to that. Tier 4 is the academic tier, and unfortunately, you guys in the academic world very often will be approached by the legal profession to give an expert witness, to give an expert opinion. But a lot of the academic individuals in the academic tiers do play a role in tier 1, 2, and 3. So there is quite an overlap. This is the structure as it is at the moment. We've got the peer review committee at the top, and then we've got the chair, and then the 2 chairs, and the 5 experts, and the 25 tiered experts, and we've got the academic tier at the bottom. So that's the structure at the moment. Here's the peer review just by name. It is a guide, the rule breaker, a guide for the rule breakers to help them into the right direction. If there is misconduct, it will be evaluated. Offer guidance to comply with acceptable standards, and liaised with the HPCSA. We've got 2 individuals that serve on the HPCSA that are in the EOMC and to liaise directly with them. That's the obstetric at the moment, and I just want to emphasize that the choice of the individuals of who was done by the SASO committee, and we had to have a distribution across the country as well, because we can't have everybody from the Western Cape. It always tends to meander down to the Western Cape. So the SASO was very well aware that they had to make it equitable to everybody. So this is what we've got at the moment. It's not static. We've had 1 or 2 resignations already for personal day, and then we rethink the whole thing and then approach the individuals. That is the Gynae. That is the Tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you can see all the names there. I'm not going to go. It's just that it's just from my own record. And the reason of the tiered system I have touched upon already. Now this was very vocal. Henny is who is an expert and who is not an expert. And unfortunately, historically, in my mind, I have a very similar thought about this. Is we've gone through for many years and many decades of litigation in the medical legal field, and the indemnifier only deals with certain law firms. The certain law firms only deals with certain advocates, and certain advocates only deal with certain expert witnesses. It's there. It's reality. And this is what Alan just said. Are we being fair? Are we giving justice? So who is not an expert? A serial expert or a smoking gun retired clinician supplementing income, who will go out there and he is so-and-so and he's done so many of this case, etc. It's not only in our field, it's across the spectrum in medicine. And he will give an opinion, and I can say it happened to me sitting next to a judge, and a clinical thing came up, and he said to me, and he wrote on a piece of paper, he said, "What the hell are they talking about?" So, we have to, and the judge sitting there has got to be led by this expert. So it is for this reason that the EOMC have decided that it must be two individuals with a scientific background and 1 individual that practices in very similar circumstances. Generally, the experts advising other defendants or plaintiffs to suit and serve the case they are involved in. And that is, and you can, and got this from lawyers, got this from advocates, and said, we really have given them a run for their money. So in other words, he chooses a single expert that he's used before that will strengthen his case. So conflict a traditional expert opinion system does not equate to an unbiased and equitable legal remedy. Who is an expert? SASOG, we have come up and now we can go further. Consider an EOMC as an expert that serves on the EOMC and has satisfied the criteria as laid down by the Constitution of the EOMC. And that Constitution will be on the website once everything is registered. I don't think I have to say there might be questions about then. When will we render a report? Once an HPCSA, if the case goes to the HPCSA, once we've got a charge sheet. We can't do much without a charge sheet. A successful pre-mediation at the request of a pre-mediator and a mediator approved by the parties. Medical legal report may be requested, and so forth. I get the hint. Preemptive reporting is if so required in trivial cases. That we see. You know, as I told Lut earlier on, there are cases that really don't even need to be mentioned because they can be sorted out. I won't touch on that. I'd just like to mention this, and bear with me for 1 second, please. You know, we've had, I think I've touched on that, and we're trying to move away from this, that the old indemnifiers, or the previous indemnifier, is the syndrome that we've seen. But what's happened now, we have tried so hard to communicate them, to give us data. They will not give us data. That's it. They just don't give us data. So it is that brought in the next indemnifier that is more approachable and that supports the early intervention and continuous support. And this is where Alan said, you know, we're doing the pre-mediation before we do the mediation. What we would like to see, and we had a meeting about it just the other day with one of the indemnifiers, is that the indemnifier, if you get that famous letter, will actually go with the indemnifier plus one of the experts and saying, listen, what is the story? Tell us, can we help you? Here's your indemnifier. Here we are, the expert opinion. Can we be of assistance to you? You know, that guy that has got that fear, that you can share that fear with them. And that is what early intervention is all about. And then from there to develop a transparent, participating product. And this is the last. Historically, indemnifiers reconsidered their position and make a bold paradigm that we feel they have to make a bold, and this is the one we are dealing with now, and hopefully we will be able to get them into the right direction, to make a bold paradigm shift and participate in the solution in the reduction of indemnity costs for the doctors and the patients. And that we don't, what we're seeing now, that we are actually, what they see as mediation is different what we see in mediation, that they want to bring their lawyers in, and that we repackaging the whole mediation effort of resolving disputes. I also think very important is that the doctors can play a role by keeping some skin in the game, and then the funders have bought into this and they are willing to help us. And the education, I think if we can turn this whole thing around, we will improve every aspect, not only here in South Africa, but virtually all around, because mediation is throughout the world, and very successfully so. And the last slide, is this program generic? Yes, it is. You can apply this whole program of the Better Ops and the EOMC to all disciplines of medicine. Thank you.
Paul, thank you very much for that talk. I think we might be able to take one question if anyone has a question. But
sorry, we discussed EOMC amongst SASWOP Council last week, and I think where it differs from mediation is that none of your reports are binding, is it? There is no agreement, and although I thought a big benefit would be if the practitioner is felt to have been negligent, you would hope that at least the indemnifiers take note of your report and don't run to court.
Yeah.
That will already be a cost saver, but I cannot see that it's actually keeping the litigation lawyer away because at the end it's an opinion from 3 people and it's a consensus report, and they may not actually agree on all the details that the lawyer would actually benefit from in a court situation. So I'm not sure how the reports of the UNC are actually going to stop.
The way that we see it is if those individuals give the report, the 3 individuals give the report, and that report will be requested by the guy that's done the pre-mediation, or the guy that's going to institute the mediation. You'll get a report, because just remember, you've got both parties have signed that they want to go the mediation route. We're going to wait for that report. First of all, that report must be absolutely unbiased. It must be correct, and both parties have got insight to it. Now, this thing might be, say, the doctor was wrong, or the patient was overreacting, or whatever. You've already got the 2 parties there, and you can then, you as the mediator, Alan, you can probably talk better on that, must steer them into the direction, say, okay, how about, there is a problem on your side, on the doctor's side. Just a simple apology might just, but that report is really the vehicle to try and keep the mediation, on track. Yes, one is concerned about the expert witnesses. That to me, and I'm sure to Alan as well, is a big problem. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock, and with everybody now.
Just to add to what Paul has said, we've got 3 scenarios as far as expert reports are concerned. One, where the experts have no doubt that there's no negligence, no fault, no causality. 2, where the experts are all at it and that there's clearly fault. Then they will report that, and that will guide the parties in the mediation very nicely. But there's a 3rd important category, and that is where there is uncertainty. What we are stressing with SASOG and all the other expert committees is that tell people about that uncertainty. And so with this broad spectrum of knowledge that you're going to get with these panels, you will, for example, have the latest academic writing. So let's say we all know now that cerebral palsy, the thinking of what causes cerebral palsy, has changed dramatically the last 5 years. Make sure that that information is communicated to both parties. Because, as I said, mediation depends on the interests, the needs, and the concerns of the parties. So if you tell them, listen, there is new science that says only 5% or 10% of cerebral palsy cases can be attributed to the negligence of the medical practitioner, that is very important information in the mind of a party that wants to decide whether they want to settle a matter on a particular basis or not. So it's that concern that must be communicated then by the expert panel. So we don't expect these expert panels to always be sure about whether there's negligence or not. In fact, we are encouraging them to say rather, look, this case is difficult for the following reasons. It could be, it could be, it could be. These are the risks that both parties must take into account if they wish to litigate this case further. And so you help people to take an informed decision on what basis they want to settle, because that's what mediation does. It gives you a chance to weigh your options based on what your worry is. And if you're told by an expert panel, look here, it's not as clear as you might be being told by your lawyer and some other expert. It is you're in uncharted waters. I remember after the last conference we had, 3 of the lawyers came up and said, Alan, if we knew this, we wouldn't have taken on these cases on contingency. So there's a whole new mindset that is awakening, and I think it's all about helping people to take informed decisions.
2 words, where we'd really like to be, we would really like to be, is that does it work? Is that the judges will actually say, but where's the opinion of the expert opinion mediation committee? That's the strength that we would like to see in if there are expert 2 opposing parties, and then the judge must say, but listen, where's this other report? Is there such a report? That's what we'd like to see over time. So it's a long way to go, but
Paul and Alan, I'd like to thank you very much for coming through. It's very nice to hear about its fantastic initiatives, and I think it's going to go a long way. And maybe in a year's time we can invite you back and hear how it's progressed and what the new developments are. But round of applause for our guests, and thank you.